is The Furnace with John Burton.
All right, I guess I just have to do it. Have to talk to y'all just a little bit about this Donald Trump craziness that we saw this during the election. And I posted an article, and now we're seeing it again. You know, it's, at least in my little world. I'm not getting y'all. Some of y'all that are just tripping. You're absolutely tripping over any mention of concern about Donald Trump. And I'll tell you this. I'll start by saying this. Anybody who blindly follows anybody else without appropriate, honest, and honorable scrutiny is a fool. They're absolutely foolish, right? And those that know me, you know, I'm a mega believer in honoring leadership. I teach on that all the time. I've written on that many times. And also jump back in time a little bit and see how I handled President Obama. You know, before he was elected, I really let it rip because I was opposed to him as a leader of our nation, and especially all of the issues that he was affirming that were, in my opinion, vile. But when he was elected president, I switched from being very bold and directly dealing with him as an individual to now he's my leader. So I switched to simply dealing with concerning issues while also doing my best to remain honoring. Okay, so you deal with leaders differently than you deal with others. You know, I deal with, my pastor or my boss at work, or government officials, police officers, judges. You deal with them differently. They demand respect and honor. It's biblical. It's not just a good idea that I have. It's biblical. We honor authority. But we don't become brain dead when they become leaders. So if your pastor was, suddenly embraced some sort of immorality, there have been pastors out there that they've fallen. I was there when Jimmy Swaggart fell, and he was caught with a prostitute, and and different ones went through their struggles. So do we now dishonor them? No, we don't dishonor them, but we deal with the issues. We deal with the problems. But what's happening with all of you folks out there, that, man, you're not smart, and you're losing your credibility by blindly following Donald Trump and then accusing others who are concerned about his leadership and about things that he's doing, accusing them of all sorts of things, of being religious or being immature or whatever. And it's crazy. And so what in the world are you thinking? What's going on? Why are you doing this? Because Donald Trump has serious issues. Now, we add to the mix the fact that he's a Christian. He's a professing Christian. And so he, especially as a public figure, he absolutely gives himself up for fruit inspection. Without question. And I'll tell you this, Christians, and I'm talking about the Spirit-filled camp. And when you're Spirit-filled Christians, you realize you're filled with the Holy Spirit, the Spirit that is holy. And so I'm dealing with mostly Spirit-filled Christians here, and it's blowing my mind that they could not care less, many of them, about the things that our president is doing. Because what do they do? They're like, well, who else are we going to pick? It was the same thing when he was running against Hillary. who else are we going to choose? You know? Or here's the big one. It's like, oh, so you've never messed up, or you've never committed a sin. What are you arguing for at that point? You got me on that one. You're a little confusing. I'm not sure what to think about it. So by saying, get this, oh, so you've never messed up, or you've never sinned. I hear that all the time, not only with President Trump, but in many, many different types of scenarios and situations. I hear about that. You know, whenever we're dealing with holiness, whenever we're dealing with righteousness, you get that crowd. Well, so you've never messed up. So you've never sinned. Oh, so you're perfect. Oh, so you never sinned. Oh, and so that's their argument. What does that mean? What are you trying to say by arguing that goofy little question? Are you saying we should stop preaching holiness? Is that really what you're saying? So if I, as a preacher of the gospel, have never messed up, if I, as a preacher of the gospel, I have messed up, which of course everybody has, I've sinned. So the fact that I have sinned means I can no longer preach holiness. Is that what you're saying? Does the fact that I have sinned mean that I can never, ever deal with someone else's sin, that I can't inspect fruit? Is that what you're saying? Are you saying that since I have sinned, and everybody has, that no longer, we can't at all, we can't ever have issue with anybody else's sin at all? So Jimmy Swaggart, who got caught with a prostitute, it was completely inappropriate for the leaders to even mention the fact that he sinned. So you've never messed up? So you've never committed a sin? Well, that would have been the argument, right? You know, so children who sin, and they do so every now and then, we have no right to mention their sin. We have no right to bring it to their attention. We have no right to punish them. Why? Because we also sinned when we were children. This is the argument. This is absolute foolishness. Not to mention radically unbiblical. It's the people that are using that as a defense are jokers. Okay? Doesn't make sense. Right? And so, you know, let's keep on this for a moment. So now, those that say, oh, so you've never sinned, why were, you know, most of these, you know, I'm kind of in this little Republican world. Most of these people are Republicans. Why would they have ever had issue with President Obama or Hillary Clinton? Why? Why? What's the big deal? You know, I know President Obama, at least at one point, he claimed to be a Christian. And so he supported abortion and homosexual rights and all sorts of things. Well, have you never messed up? How dare you mention that? So now, with abortion as a major issue in the land today, we have no right to talk to abortionists and abortion doctors, or to protest outside of abortion clinics. Well, you've never messed up. If you've been angry, the Bible even calls that murder. So you're a murderer too. So you have no right to judge them. Right? And it's this goofy, unbiblical idea that we're not supposed to judge. That somehow, you know, now bringing up this President Trump thing. And by the way, people are wondering, what did he do? Well, by and large, he's done a lot of great things. And by the way, if people would stop being triggered, you know, a lot of these people are making comments on this particular Facebook post. I don't know if those of you that are listening to this will ever find that or not. It's on my Facebook, but they just got triggered the moment that they heard anything negative about President Trump, or any questions or any scrutiny. They got triggered and immediately lashed back. not even understanding that, the article that I posted, the writer there said he was going to vote for Trump again. There's positives. There's all sorts of good things. But so they get triggered by that with the very thought of any scrutiny about President Trump. And what he did recently was he used the Lord's name in vain. He cursed God's name. And Christians, Spirit-filled Christians who are supposed to be embracing holiness, whatever, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. The fact that he's a professing Christian and president of our nation, the fact that he's cursing God doesn't matter. Well, it's just a cuss word. He wasn't actually cursing God. A cuss word doesn't matter? Really? So you're telling me maybe you do. It's probably the case. Maybe you sit your kids in front of the TV and you're watching movies where the Lord's name is taken in vain. Maybe you do that, I guess. Maybe. GD over and over and over. I'll never forget the time many years ago when an evangelist visited a church. It was packed out. Holiness people in this church. And he was ministering in the area of media. And he had his equipment set up, movie screen set up. And he asked the question. He said, so what do y'all think about the Karate Kid? This was way back when the Karate Kid came out. And what do you think about that? And how many have seen it? Almost every hand. There was probably 500 people there. Every hand goes up almost. All over the place, just a sea of hands. And then, okay, so you've all seen it, and what do you think about it? And you walked up to the youth pastor. And the youth pastor said, well, I think that it was good moral movie and good principles, and yeah. And so he goes and he presses play there on the VCR, probably was back there in the day. And it was queued up to this part of the movie where Daniel starts just ripping Mr. Miyagi and cussing and GD this and GD that in the church. And people were just stunned. And he asked one simple question. And he said, what's the problem? All of you admitted to watching this movie. So you can watch it at home, but you can't watch it in the church? He was calling them out as hypocrites. And so now we live in a day where this kind of stuff is everywhere. And a professing Christian president of the United States of America does what he did, and nobody cares. Did you know that you can have concern about a president or a leader? You can have issue and still support them? Did you know that? Did you know that you don't have to be a yes man to still honor and support somebody? Did you know that? People are saying, well, you should just pray for the president. No, you shouldn't just pray for the president. You're wrong. You should pray for him, but you shouldn't just pray for him. Because there's more to be done. Well, it's gossip what you're doing. It's not gossip. And I teach on gossip. This is a mega issue of mine. I hate it with a passion. See, gossip is witchcraft where we intend to do harm to the person that we're talking about. And so, for example, when Ted Haggard fell in Colorado, I was there. I was in the region. And so people were talking about it. And you could tell the difference between somebody who was gossiping and who was mad at him and who wanted to do harm and who wanted bad things to happen to him, and those who were just grieved in their spirit. And they talked about it. And they would share their opinions that, yes, we need to let people know that this is not a good time for them to sit under his leadership. And they'd be grieved. So that's not gossip. It's not gossip. And so there's all this crazy going on out there with this. And this is an important issue beyond just President Trump. It's way bigger than this. Because we have people now, and I knew this. I said this during the election season. I said it. That the greatest concern that I have is now Christians, millions of them, are intentionally minimizing the power of immorality, wickedness, evil, and sin for the sake of getting their man in office. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have forgiven him. I'm not saying that he wasn't the man for the job. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that we can't believe for good things going forward. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying any of that. But what I am saying is the church is taking a mighty step backwards because they have said, point blank, doesn't really matter what you did. It doesn't even really matter what you're doing. We believe you're God's man for the position and we're going to support you. And that is foolishness. And that has done great damage to the church. It would be much better to say that, and where, how hard would it be to say this? Where are the Christians with some integrity? Where they say, yes, I see these things. Yes, this is a blemish on our nation, the things that he's doing. Yes, it's wrong. I don't support it. But I'm still believing that God's going to use him. Say that. And you'd be in a much better place than coming against other Christians who are simply in love with Jesus and they simply are promoting holiness because of the indwelling Holy Spirit. I'm not saying everyone does it perfectly. I'm not saying I do it perfectly. But there's a yearning for holiness. And for you to come against people because they are more interested in the Holy Spirit and holiness than they are in God's man of the hour. Man, come on. What in the world is going on out there? And so, yeah, where are we with this? Don't be a President Trump yes man. Don't be triggered every moment somebody has concern about him. How can you not be concerned about him? You're kidding me. You serious? How are you not concerned about his behavior? And Christians are looking like idiots and hypocrites when we excuse his wretched behavior, yet we're preaching holiness from the pulpits. And my concern is that holiness is just going to stop being preached from the pulpits even more than it already has. So we can support, a lifestyle of worldliness, immorality, without any fear of being labeled as a hypocrite. So this is bigger than President Trump. It's an issue that hits our culture in so many different places. But the moment someone stands for holiness is the moment people attack. And as far as I'm concerned, let them attack. Because they're wrong. They need to be put in their place. They need to be rebuked. Because I tell you what, man, the Holy Spirit is holy. And so yes, pray for President Trump, but don't just pray. Let it be known the good that he's doing, and let it be known the trouble that he's bringing. Because he is bringing trouble. But I am believing that God is using him, and I'm believing that God's going to continue to use him. Get off your black and white kind of, you either support him or you don't. No. You have to be a little more intelligent than that. Be a little more discerning. Because it'll be very easy to be duped in the end by the Antichrist. And of course, I'm not calling Donald Trump the Antichrist. But the Antichrist is going to be incredibly convincing. And he's going to do a lot of good. And he's going to bring peace. It's going to be amazing. And it'll be very easy to ignore all of the red flags. Because many, believe it or not, will believe he is God's man of the hour. leave some comments. That should be fun.
Thank you for listening to The Furnace with John Burton. You can access media, read articles, and partner with the ministry online at burton.tv. And by all means, share this podcast with those who are hungry for revival, reformation, and revolution.